James Anderson was a man who ran his life by the clock. Every second was accounted for, every minute scheduled. He was a slave to the relentless march of time. Work consumed him, deadlines hounded him. His wife Sarah and his two children Emily and Tom were shadows in the periphery of his vision. They yearned for his attention, craved his time. But James was always too busy, always preoccupied. One Saturday, a rare day off, James found himself pacing the house restlessly. He couldn't shake the feeling that he should be doing something productive. His wife Sarah watched him with a mixture of sadness and exasperation. "James," she said, her voice soft but firm, "why don't you spend some time with the children? They hardly see you these days." James sighed, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I know, he muttered, "but I have so much to do." He escaped to the attic, a place of forgotten memories and dusty relics. He was searching for some old files, remnants of a past life he barely remembered. As he rummaged through a dusty old chest, his fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. He pulled it out, curiosity piqued. It was a pocket watch, ornately crafted with an inscription on the back, "Tempus Fugit." Time flies. James stared at the inscription, a strange feeling washing over him. He felt a sudden urge to open the watch to unravel its secrets. Little did he know he was about to stumble upon a power that would change his life forever, the power to control time itself. The watch felt cool and heavy in his hand. James traced the inscription with his thumb, "Tempus Fugit," a reminder of the ever-fleeting nature of time, a concept he knew all too well. As he pressed the button on the side, he felt a jolt, a surge of energy coursing through him. The world around him froze, silence descended, absolute and complete. He stared in disbelief, his heart pounding in his chest. The dust motes hung motionless in the air, the cobwebs seemed frozen in time. He could hear the blood rushing in his ears, the only sound in the silent world. He had stopped time. A giddy sense of exhilaration washed over him. He could do anything, he realized. He had all the time in the world. At first he used his newfound power for small things. He'd freeze time to catch up on work, to steal a few extra minutes of sleep. He even used it to avoid awkward social encounters, freezing the world around him as he slipped away unnoticed. He justified his actions, telling himself it was harmless. He was merely borrowing time, not stealing it. But power, once tasted, is a heady brew. It whispered in his ear, tempting him, urging him to take more. The line between harmless pranks and outright manipulation began to blur. James found himself using the watch for personal gain, for selfish desires that gnawed at his conscience. He started small, using his power to rig a card game, to win a bet on a horse race. The thrill of easy victory was intoxicating. Soon, his ambitions grew bolder, his morals eroded by the seductive allure of power. He used the watch to manipulate stock prices, to steal valuable artifacts from museums, his actions hidden behind a veil of frozen time. He amassed wealth, possessions, all the things he thought would bring him happiness. But the emptiness inside him only grew wider, the void left by his neglect of his family echoing louder. Section 4. The wheels of time stopped turning. One night, James found himself in a high-stakes poker game, the air thick with tension and the smell of expensive cigars. He'd been on a winning streak, his pockets overflowing with cash. He felt invincible, untouchable. He pressed the button on the watch, ready to freeze time and claim his final victory. But this time, something was different. The world didn't freeze. The clock on the wall continued to tick, its relentless rhythm mocking his power. He pressed the button again, harder this time, panic rising in his throat. Nothing. The watch was warm to the touch, almost hot, and a low hum emanated from it. He was trapped, his control over time slipping away like sand through his fingers. Section 5. Frozen terror. Panic seized him. He had to get out of there, find a way to fix the watch. He mumbled an excuse and stumbled away from the table, his hands shaking. As he rushed out of the building, he fumbled for his phone, his mind racing. He had to get home, tell Sarah everything, he had to make things right. He arrived at his house, his heart pounding in his chest. He fumbled with his keys, his hands slick with sweat. He threw open the door, calling out for his family. Sarah? Emily? Tom? Silence met his ears, an unnatural, chilling silence. He walked into the living room, his heart sinking with every step. The room was in disarray, furniture overturned, lamps shattered. And then he saw them, his wife and children bound and gagged, terror etched on their faces. Standing over them, a shadowy figure, his back to James. Time was still frozen, holding them all captive in this nightmare. Section 6. The Price of Power. James stared at the scene before him, his blood turning to ice. He had been so consumed by his own selfish desires, so blinded by the allure of power, that he had neglected the very people he was supposed to protect, his family. He had traded their safety, their love, for fleeting moments of stolen time, and now he was powerless to help them. The intruder turned, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Nice watch you got there," he sneered. "Shame it doesn't work anymore." James lunged at him, fueled by a primal rage, but the intruder was quicker. He dodged James's attack and slammed him against the wall, the stolen watch clattering to the floor. As James lay there, helpless, staring into the eyes of his family's tormentor, he realized the true cost of his actions. Time, once his to command, was now his enemy. He was trapped, frozen in a moment of his own making, forced to confront the devastating consequences of his choices. The inscription on the watch, "Tempus Fugit," echoed in his mind, a cruel reminder of the precious time he'd squandered.